talking about client booking and what that looks like. So for many of you guys who are new to me, welcome. Super excited to be here today. Sorry about being a little disorganized this afternoon, but technical difficulties as they will do what they do. So this is our third pillar. And for those that are sort of new to me, when I say pillar, I'm referring to the framework by which you can operate a successful and profitable travel business. There are 5 pillars associated with operating your travel business. I've divided them up into 5. They are your travel request process, which we went over a couple of weeks ago. Number 2 is really around how you present your trips to your clients. Do you do it via, if you're doing fits, are you doing it via a proposal? If you are doing group trips, are you doing it via sales pages and what have you? Pillar 3 is all about payments. How do you take payments? How do you take the money? How does it all work? And terms and conditions associated with that. Pillar 4 is what we're going to go over to this week, is really around, now you've got their money, you've hooked them, now what? So how do we manage the booking after we've got the proposal approval, or they've said, yes, I want to go on your trip, your group trip that you're curating, or what have you. And then pillar 5, which is something that we'll be going over most likely in the month of March, is all about the results. How do you manage the results of your business? How do you get reviews? How do you manage your reputation out there on those internet streets? We'll be addressing that in pillar 5. So this pillar is really focused on, now what? They are in your world now. They have said yes to whatever it is that you are selling. How are we going to treat them afterwards? So pillar 4, which is client booking, is really focused on that part of the business. And so I just need to make sure that we are broadcasting in the final place that we're supposed to be broadcasting in. So let me just make sure that we are there. Perfect. All right. So pillar 4 is all about the booking. So last month we went over the travel request process and we got them to approval. How many of you guys actually have a process? And let me know, let me make sure I have not closed down chat, because I may have done that like I did last time. So let me, I am technically exhausted not to be able. So you guys should be able to chat in the Zoom. If you've joined us live in the Zoom, you should be able to chat, no problem there. So let me know in comments, how many of you guys are actually, you have a process by which you handle your clients after they do booking, or do you just send them some emails, you get some information, and then you get them out of town? Like, how many of you guys have a process? Let me know in the comments if you do. If you don't have a process, just type 0 and let me know kind of what I'm working with in terms of what you guys are doing with your clients after they say yes. And the last challenge I did, it was silent. So hopefully you guys are not as silent as the last one I did. Like it was like crickets out there. I have a trip process, then I add them to a welcome and a nurture sequence. All right, I have a process, but it's not consistent. That's fair. I get that a lot. A lot of advisors, they inconsistently do some stuff. And so lots of zeros, and that's okay, because that's really the purpose of this week. So let me tell you, this one is a short workshop. We're only going to be meeting for 3 days. Today, we're really going to talk about the strategy and the process. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how we automate what we can. I'm going to also show you Travel Pro Suite and show you where that automation is occurring. And then on Wednesday, we're going to wrap it up and we're going to talk about like some additional cool stuff that we can be doing as it relates to our booking process, like AI tools and how we can use tools and technology above and beyond just our CRM tool to really aid us in that engagement process that we deal with our clients. All right. So we got a lot of responses, right? So we've got some who are doing email, some who are doing text. You've got sort of a loosey-goosey process. And listen, I've been there, right? When I first started in the business, I had a very loosey-goosey process. I was like, okay, now they said yes. Now what do I do? And so I just sort of jumped in and I kind of figured it out as to what I wanted to say to them, what I wanted to do with them, and all of the above. And so I sort of panicked like every time I had a booking, and for those of you who are not new to me, you know that I get like, I got armpit issues, like when I get nervous or what have you. So every time I get a booking, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? And I'd be like, okay, let me find that email that I wrote the last time I sent out a booking. And God, I wasn't doing any texting. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just like, armpits like sweating. And I'm just like searching through and I have Gmail and I have moved, from Outlook to 365 to Gmail. Gmail sucks. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Gmail as a business platform, it's cheaper certainly than Microsoft, but finding your email is not like Outlook. And so I remember when I switched and I'm looking for email that I sent to clients trying to find what did I say the last time I did a booking. And then I had to have a come to Jesus conversation with myself, and it went sort of like this: Sundey, you know better, you can do better, and you should do better. So that is when I started to standardize my emails. I said, okay, Sundey, you've written emails, you know how to put together a template, do yourself a favor and do that. And so we sort of went through, I had been interviewing travel advisors, and this is before, this is when I was kind of new to the business, interviewed advisors to see kind of what they did. And loosey goosey still had a standard, but I didn't have the time to actually formalize it. So 2-3 years ago, I formalized my own standard. I was like, okay, we have 180, a 90, a 30, 45. And I was like, these are all the forms that I'm going to collect. These are all the things that we're going to do. And that's really what we're going to talk about today is you guys are doing some sort of consistency, but I'm going to tell you kind of how I've packaged it up into a process that is sort of rinse and repeat. So even if I do a destination that has a little bit of nuances, it's pretty much the same thing, right? I'm collecting the same kinds of information. Maybe there's a custom form by destination, but when they get into the process, it's the same. The type of communication that I do is consistent. The type of information that I'm collecting is consistent. And the kind of communication that I'm sending out is consistent. And that's what we want, because this is absolutely one of the easiest parts of the process. Like, we've done all the heavy lifting. We've done the designing. We've done the negotiation. And they've said yes. This part of can you guys hear my dogs? Like, my dogs, my dogs are like having a field day. I don't know who's out in the yard, but they're like mad. So this should be the easiest part of the process for us. Not only should it be the easiest part, it's the easiest for us to automate, even if our destinations have very specific criteria. The way that we need to communicate with our clients, we got to get them on a plane, we got to get them to the accommodation, we got to get them, so the types of things that we need to do are pretty consistent, even if the destination has some very unique characteristics about it. And even if you're dealing with a client that's a little bit a pain, right? It's still pretty much the same type of information that you need to collect. So let's talk about kind of what this sort of standard that I've created. So I'm going to share. This is very, very rough because, I would love to do whiteboard, but I'm not even going to pretend today that I'm technically capable of doing whiteboard activity with you all. So I'm going to share my notes with you all, and then let me know if you guys can see my notes in just 1 second. All right, can you guys see my notes?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. All right.
Yes.
So I have broken up the client booking management into 5 stages. Those stages are setting client expectations up front. I like to communicate to the point of, I wish you would stop. So I want to set those expectations up front. So we'll talk about what that looks like. We'll talk about supplier management and how you can help yourself with your suppliers in terms of making that process a standard. Because what I do know about suppliers is if we are sort of loosey-goosey, our suppliers are too, right? And a lot of them are not using technology to help make this process. So where we would like to automate internally, we can't always when we're communicating with our suppliers. Then we'll talk about client communication and how we can be consistent in the way that we communicate, the reminders that we send out, and then task management overall. Okay, these are the stages that we're going to talk about. When we go into demo next week, and I may have some time to actually show you guys some of the stuff today, and then kind of continue that tomorrow inside of our tool. But what I will tell you is if you are interested in testing out Travel Pro Suite, I'm going to put in chat a 14-day trial. You will, if you do want to get sort of these done for you items that we're going to be going through inside of this week, you will need to get the trial because that's the only way that you'll be able to access that. So go ahead and just download. That's what we're going to be talking about. I'm actually going to be demoing it and showing you those features all throughout this week. All right, so let's start with the first stage. Right, so we actually, and I'm going to show you this tomorrow, but we speak in this language too inside of any tool, any processes that we talk about. When I'm putting together those processes for you, I'm really talking about it in these sort of stages in terms of how we are interacting with our clients and our suppliers and the whole process within Pillar 4. So let's talk about stage 1. The first thing in terms of setting expectations with your clients is making sure that you're super clear about what you need from them all the way through. So from the time they say yes until you get them back in town, what do you need from them and what do you need to communicate? You need to define that up front. What are the ins from them that you need and what are the outs that you need to be providing them? And so some of you all are booking travel, greater than 180 days, right? A year and a half in advance, right? So you may not need to do so much communication initially, but you do need to have some process to sort of keep those embers warm during this sort of right before. And I kind of think of the right before where we start to really accelerate communications is about 90 days. So we have a really strict communication cadence that we follow 90 days before the trips. Before that, it really should be some sort of reach outs that you do. Whatever you decide, set the expectations up front. You need to make sure that you have clear terms, right? What you can expect is there's going to be potential change. There's going to be potential things not go the way that you want pre-trip. So what does that look like in your business? Have you already defined that? Let's say there's a change to the booking. Are you going to charge for that? Have you already made those decisions? Will your client be surprised when you drop a $200 bill in their lap because they've made a change on something? Or did you communicate that up front? So it's super important that after they say yes, you should be in fulfillment mode. And that really means making sure that there's no misunderstanding about your process in terms of how your client should expect you to interact with them all the way until they get back home. Because you really are responsible for them until they get back home, right? You're responsible for the relationship because you haven't really even delivered the product until they go out of town. So whatever that time is between them saying yes until they go out of town, you need to manage the relationship. You need to manage their expectations so that you get them out of town, right? Because many of you all are not getting paid until they go out of town. So you don't want them to lose that fire that they had when they said yes, right? Because how many of you guys have had people, you've had clients, they say yes, they're very enthusiastic and not so much throughout the payments drop off. Their excitement is not as much as it was before when it first started. Like, how many of you guys have had that happen to you? That's kind of frustrating, right? Well, you can manage that. Also, I'm going to tell you one of the biggest things that I really think in terms of managing expectations is the money. And I know many of you guys don't do monthly payments. You don't do monthly. You do like first the deposit and final payment. And people's money is funny. And so I like the consistency of the monthly reminders, monthly payments that keeps them consistently bought into the trip, right? So setting those expectations up front, even from a money perspective, also ensures, and again, it could just be me, but for me, just having that sort of monthly incremental payment and commitment financially keeps those fires burning all throughout the process, no matter how far in advance. So that's another thing to consider. If you are one, and there is a cost associated to processing payments monthly, but I just want you to think about that. Like if you find yourself in a situation where you have you're chasing people down at the end because you do deposit and final, maybe you need to change the way that you do your payment plan so that you can get that sort of continual commitment every single month, or at some more frequency. So stage one is really about making sure that you're clear about what your process is. You understand how change is going to occur. Your client understands how change is going to occur, what you need from them, when you need it from them, and how you're going to communicate to them about what you need from them and what they need to be doing along the process. So stage one is really just about executing your plan. If you're loosey-goosey, you probably don't have a plan. So this is why it's so important to really think about those things right now. So we'll talk a little bit about what all that looks like, but really some of the things in terms of ins and outs to think about is some people have their passport with them when they get ready to book. You hope that they have a valid passport, but some people don't. Some people put it off, right? So even though I ask for passport information right now, it certainly is a part of our terms that, that they need to know, that they need to make sure that their passport's not 6 months. But do I actually need the passport now? Like if they're traveling a year from now, I don't really need it now, right? So the in is that I know that I would like to have their passport on file, but I don't need it now. So it's a soft capture of that information. But we have a hard requirement at month 3. Does that make sense? So that's an example of in. Another example is if I'm not booking flights, I do need their flight information, but do I need it now if it's a year in advance? I don't need it now. But we have a hard stop that we will not accept your flight information if it's 30 days out, because I don't want to be last minute dealing with ground transportation, right? So as a process, we've got a hard collection of that. We start that collection day 45, and we're like, you've got 15 days to get it together. So get that last minute ticket, whatever it is that you're going to do, right? So that's another procedural input of information that we need. All right. We start communication 90 days out that is really active. So from the 90-day mark all the way up until day of trip, we're doing some sort of communication at least every 30 days. And then as it gets sooner, we're doing it even more frequently. So what's your cadence for speaking to your client? Tell them up front in that expectations. Change management. How will you handle change? Do you understand the change that your supplier requires? What's their policy? Have you communicated that to your clients? Because you have a duty to communicate the terms of your suppliers to your clients as a part of the approval process. So it's important that you do that as well. Managing your risk. Do you have processes in place that manage your business's risk? Did you collect a waiver for all of your insurance, right? Did you make sure that your insurance, that your quote, that your proposal included a quote for insurance, or are you one that's doing it after? I don't like messing with it after. So our proposal always includes a travel quote. And I know before they said yes if they're declining it or not. So as a part of that approval process, I'm collecting the waiver. But have you done that, right? Do you have errors and emissions insurance? What happens if there's an accident, right? Just the list goes on. Are you relying on your host agency to cover you on errors and emission? What if their policies expire, right? These are all decisions that you really should have had before you even got a client to say yes, but you certainly want to be checking them off when you get to the expectations. Do you have terms and conditions? Did you, as a part of your approval process, get those terms and conditions signed? Do you have a credit card authorization process? Are you getting credit cards authorized, right? So are you managing your risk? Even if you are doing supplier invoices and you're not processing payments yourself and you're using your client's credit card, are you capturing authorization at every signature, at every collection point? Right? So these are, what do you need and do you communicate that? And you should communicate that to your client. I'm going to pause because if you said zero to what you're doing, you may be like, what, Sunday? Like, do I, what, why do we have, why? Like, just because you have to, like you should. So if you're surprised by any of these things, let me know in comments and I would love to dispel any myths around what you should or should be doing. I actually had a client earlier today reach out to me about travel insurance. And one of the comments that she made is like, she just doesn't know what, when she should collect, when she should present the waiver or present the insurance. And this to me is probably one of the stickiest points, I think, for travel advisors is they don't know if they should. Like, you absolutely have a duty of care to offer travel insurance for every trip. Now, as a policy, you can say, we don't do it, but you still have a duty of care to tell people that you don't do it and obtain their waiver because you didn't do it. Does that, or acknowledgement that you didn't do it. So travel insurance is not a hands-off type of thing. You're not an agent, you're not an insurance agent, unless of course you are an insurance agent. You don't need to operate as an insurance agent, but as a travel advisor, you do have a duty of care to actually offer them the opportunity to purchase and protect their trip. Does that make sense? So that's probably one of the biggest questions that I get, like during this process is, do I really need to get a waiver? You need to protect your business because let me just tell you the sheer amount of stories that I've heard from advisors. Even if it hasn't been a personal story that I've heard, just reading about advisors who have been sued by clients who got hurt. And again, it's not hurt that you did on purpose or that you know, it's not your fault, but it doesn't mean that you can't be sued, even though it's not your fault. And you didn't, and they didn't have proof that they offered travel insurance. Clients like, I never got travel insurance. Nobody ever said I should get, or let's say they cancel their trip at the last minute and they didn't have travel insurance. And they're like, well, I shouldn't have lost that $10,000. I never got it, right? So travel insurance and the waiver is really intended to protect you as the travel advisor to ensure that you did offer and then they declined. So you need to, as a part of your process, make sure you include that on everything. Stage one is really about dotting your I's and crossing your T's and making sure you communicate the I's and the T's to your client, right? So you said yes. Part of that should have been done, if you're doing FITs, should have been done at part of the proposal approval process. But this part, before you actually get into full commitment, meaning you've booked with your clients, you want to make sure that you're getting all of those confirmations and you've made sure that you've covered your business and your client as well, because you are an advocate for your client. Before I go, I'm just going to drop and see if I'm missing any comments. New process is necessary offer for travel professionals. I'm not sure I understand what that means, but all right, I don't see any other comments. All right, so stage two is really around your supplier. If you're working with the supplier and you know, by the time you get to this stage, you should already know the dates. You should already know the money dates. You should already know cancellation dates. You should already know everything that your supplier needs, wants, or desires, because you're about to book the trip. You're about to get confirmation. You're about to get your traveler information and actually get it on the books, right? So if you don't know, it's certainly time for you to know here. What does your supplier need and what do you need from the supplier? So it's the same thing. What do you need from the supplier? It is not okay for you, said travel advisor, to not know the emergency contact information in the event of an emergency when your client is out on trip, to wait until your client is out of town. Like, you should already have that. You should already have your BDM. You should already know what the escalation policy is going to be for every component of the trip at this stage, because you need to communicate that to your client when you do your confirmation. So if you don't know that, this is a time to do that. So let's say you got a quote from Vacation Express and you don't know how Vacation Express handles escalation when your client gets on property and there's a problem with their room. I've been in the Vacation Express Facebook group, and the amount of people who are like, like, how do I get help? Like, why don't you know that already? You already should know how to get help. So it's not only what does your supplier need, what do you need from the supplier? You need to make sure that you're communicating. So a lot of advisors are treating this process just as a money exchange. But remember, you're the middle person. You're the person that's going to get your client out of town to the destination, and you're the only person really that the client is actually dealing with. So understanding points of failure with your supplier is key. If you don't already have that for any supplier and I'm talking about airline, I'm talking about ground transportation, activities, every component of the trip, who are the contact people in the event something goes wrong? Who's the neck that you strangle when things don't happen? Because it's not okay for you, if you want repeat business, for you to be like, you're on your own. That is a recipe for you not to have repeat business in the event something goes wrong. Let's just say I don't particularly care for doing bookings for airline in this world today, right? But I do understand who my clients are booking with so that I can give them a path of escalation in the event that their airline gets canceled. Does that make sense? Like, so even if you're not handling a component of it, the service that you provide is at least give them a way to help remedy issues, because they are still going to call you. Like, they're still going to call you if something goes wrong. So really, step two is really, even though we don't do a lot within our systems, because it's very difficult for me as a software provider or me as a coach to tell you exactly how every single supplier is going to interact. I just want to make sure that you have a step in your process that makes sure that you understand how your suppliers are going to act when your client is on property or at destination. Who is your escalation? Because you primarily are going to be the one that gets the text, most likely, in the event something happens. Or if you give them the right people, then you can avoid those late night texts as long as they have an escalation path. So stage two is really making sure you understand what information your supplier needs, what information you need to provide to them, and what information you need to get from them. Make sure that you have that really sound. This is why I'm a huge advocate of working with a small number of suppliers so that you can get that list tight. If you're working with 50,000 suppliers, and you got 50,000 you got 7-8 different groups of people out of town trying to navigate that, entering COVID, trying to contact all these different suppliers when you've got all these multiple suppliers becomes an administrative nightmare. And it's expensive. It's very expensive for you guys to be managing 20, 30, 40 different suppliers, and you don't have single threads of communication to deal with people when things go wrong, because things are going to go wrong. Like, I mean, it in the infamous words of Mike Tyson, it would be ludicrous of you to assume that nothing won't go wrong. Assume everything will go wrong. How do you handle it when it does? Like, that should be the way that you operate. You do the best that you can to ensure that things don't, but make sure that you have your contact list, you know how to get in contact with them in the event. And the closer relationships you can build with the supplier, so much easier it is to get issues resolved. All right, stage three is really around your method of communication before trip, during trip, and the way that you will communicate. We communicate through email and SMS prior to the trip. On trip, if they're international, WhatsApp. Because most people, I don't know if they're going to have SMS, if they're going to remember to pay their SMS bill and the international fees that go along with that. So I want to make sure that they have a way to communicate. And dealing with a lot of international countries, WhatsApp is a really good way to deal with the vendor and that. So as a policy, that's what we do, particularly if it's a group that we've curated. We've got a WhatsApp group for each of the groups that we're hosting, and we bring our clients in 30 days before we introduce them to it. Like, so it's not, again, a last minute thing that's happening. It's a part of our communication method. What's your communication method? I'd love to hear what some of you guys' communication method is. I've got I do teach Travel Joy, and so a couple of years ago, wasn't even a couple of years ago. Yeah, I guess it was a couple of years ago. It was probably 2023. What year are we in? 2024. So it was 2022, and I was in a group, one of the groups in Travel Joy, and a client, an advisor was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sending such email to my client, and my client is just mad that I'm sending so much email." And so many advisors chimed in and they're like, "Yeah, well, that's just the way it is. They can get mad if they want. But it's 2024. If they don't want email, why don't you send it to them through SMS?" You know why? Because you probably don't have the technology to do it. But you got to be where people are. If they prefer email over SMS, you need a system that will allow you to track. Just because you send it to SMS doesn't mean that you don't have an audit trail of the fact that you sent them a link to their itinerary, you sent them a link, right? So giving clients the flexibility to communicate in their preferred technology is another way to help you stand out as a choice supplier. SMS, I don't even know what SMS stands for, but yes, I do mean text. What is it? Messaging, standard messaging? I forget what SMS stands for, but it's texting. Yes, sorry about that. So texting, there's so many methods or platforms that you can text, right? So you can text, everybody is probably using the standard way, which is through their phone. The problem is have you ever tried to find a message on your personal phone that you sent to your client? How hard is that? How do you broadcast messaging to your clients 90 days? So are you individually sending text to your clients every at different increments, right? So we want to be able to use technology in a way that allows us to automatically send out SMS messages at particular points, that reminds them to fill out this form, or here's their information. Short message service. Thank you, Evelyn, for that. I appreciate that. I don't know that I officially knew that. I should have. I've just been saying SMS. I never looked to look it up. But yes, so short messaging service. So somebody just asked, what do we use we actually use texting services within the platform. So before I had this platform, I used to use Active Campaign had texting as a functionality within it. I've also used simple texting. I've used multiple platforms to do broadcasting through text messaging. I am just so happy that everything is now in one location, so I don't have to go external. The record and all of the contact information is in one location. So we can phone, we can message across multiple platforms all in one place. So we do all of that in one place. So what I do love about our CRM tools that many of you guys are using is that at least your email is centralized, but unfortunately, the breakdown and centralization happens when you market, right? So you can market, you can send out, let's use Travel Joy as an example, you can send out an email to your clients about their trip, but let's say it's 180 days out and really you want to be marketing to them and you want to be interacting with them. What if you have another trip that you want to sell them and get them excited about that as well, right? That is all disconnected and it's in a separate system. So what I want is a way to have the whole journey in one place. So this is part of the reason why we were looking for a solution to have everything, not only the trip record, but also marketing in one place. So that's really part of before the trip. You've got standard communication that you need to do before the trip. That would be specific to the trip, and then just general marketing content that you made. And this is also a way to keep those fires warm around your brand, what you have to stand for, and they're always going to be hearing. So if I've got somebody who's going on a trip a year out, they're still interacting with me even before the trip. not necessarily about the trip. I'm still keeping them engaged around other activity that we're doing in the business. So the trip is, they're like, oh my gosh, I still got this trip that's on their mind. Makes sense? So before the trip, during the trip, and then post the trip as well. So we've got methods too of communication that are happening at each one of these stages. Issue management. And so I mentioned WhatsApp because WhatsApp is a way for us to manage issues as near real time as possible without incurring hefty, phone charges, the client having to do it. And it's a way for them to be able to get answers to their questions as quickly as possible. Now, are we 24/7? Am I like manning that? Somebody is in Dubai and I'm here, 16-hour difference? No. But again, it provides them a way to get answers. And depending on who our service is, we may have, like if we're doing a group trip, we may have our group leader be a person of contact that they can contact and I'm talking about the supplier group leader who we're working with in terms of supplier. They may be communicating with our clients via WhatsApp as well. So method is really important for issue management during trip, because how many times have you guys have had clients, they're on trip and stuff just wasn't the way they needed it to be. And, they're calling you at 2 a.m., but wouldn't it have been great if they had a point of contact on the ground that they could have contacted at 2 a.m. in the morning instead of you, right? So issue management is a really big thing. And I really do love to call you guys. You guys are project managers. You just don't even know it, but that's what you are. You're event project managers, and managing issues is a part of the job. So that is stage 3. What I will tell you is when I am a certified project manager, and one of the things that I learned when I was studying for the exam many years ago is when you add more than one person to a communication chain, it becomes infinitely harder by the number of people that you add. So if you're and you all are already by default communicating with at minimum 2 people, the client and supplier, right? But if you've got multiple suppliers, you've got that communication chain. You've got multiple people who are going on the chain, so that the amount of communication that you guys are doing and need to be doing both internally and externally is huge. And you're probably not doing as much as you could be. And if you're finding yourself having a lot of issues to deal with during trip, post trip, I would lend it to, I could always probably point back to something in the process that you can improve before the trip, probably during the request stage, the expectation stage. It's probably something upstream that you can do better so that when people are on trip, they have less problems. Now, obviously, you can't do anything about the weather, right? You can't do anything about the fact that American Airlines cancels all the trips, all the flights the day of the trip, right? Those are things that you can't control, but all the things that you can control, you want to control. All right, that's stage 3. Stage 4 is about reminders. I asked a question inside the group last week about how many emails do you guys think you guys are sending? And I got pretty much general response, between 10 and 15 emails. And as a part of preparing our system and our release for this pillar, the amount of reminders that we send out. So you send an email out, let's just say passport. We need your passport information. How many times do people give you the stuff that they want on the first email or the first request? Probably not a lot, right? So then you got to send another email that reminds them. I don't know how many days you let that go by, but the I don't know if you've ever heard of this saying that your follow-up game is got to be strong, right? And so just the sheer amount of follow-up that we have to do, just in terms of reminding people to do the thing that we've asked them to do, and then reminding people of the things that we've said that they need to know, is a lot. Like, we have a lot of communication that we need to do. And so this is a great opportunity to automate that wherever you can. Wherever you can automate the reminder process, that's what you want to do. But so just in comments, like, how many of you guys get your request from your clients on the first try? I don't. I do not get what I ask for on the first time. Oftentimes the second time or even the third time. Like, do you feel like you ask your client for a fill in the blank piece of information. Do you get it the first time you ask it? Yes. 90% good? Nope. Nope. Yep. Profile. And I think that because this is when they're the hottest. They just made they're about to make the deposit. They just did the approval. So asking for as much information as a part of the approval process when they are excited is definitely a good strategy to ensure you get as much information. But then there's the trailer information that they may not have. Oh, my passport's about to expire and I need to renew it. So I'm going to do that. I'll give it to her later. Right. So I think, Danielle, to your point, right, 90% capture rate at the profile is critical. Like if you can ask for as much information as you possibly can when they're the most excited, then you're going to see a high information gathering rate, for lack of a formal term on that. So that really that's a process, right? Making sure that you ask for it. Don't wait for 6 months. Oh, they're not going out of town until 9 months from now. I'm going to wait until month 3. Ask for as much information after approval before you confirm now so that you can get it, and that just decreases what you need to ask for later. So that's one of the strategies that we follow as well. Is our travel profile is asking for their passport, it's asking for their known travel, like it's asking for everything so we can get it. So when we're doing the checks later, it's one less thing that we've got to ask for later. All right. And then I remember, okay, that's funny. So Priscilla says that I think I'm going to roll as much into the TSA as possible. I forget to ask them, panic, then I remember. So yeah, so I assume you mean the terms travel service agreement. And so yeah, absolutely. From a terms perspective, I'm really talking about data though, like how much, like because there's a lot of data that we've got to capture about our clients. How much are you guys getting that data back from your clients at the time that you need it? And I want to get it, like to Danielle's point, I want to get as much of it as possible upfront. And so as a process, we ask for it immediately after they do the approval. It's like we send them that travel profile immediately after they do the proposal approval. And before we book, we're asking them to fill out the profile, and we're asking for all of their information for all travelers. And we're doing reminders on that within the first week after the proposal is approved. So reminders, frequency, if you can define your frequency. So we do standard about 3 reminders, 4 pieces of information that we request. So whatever that is out of the system, we're going to send out 3 reminders to the client. And then the 4th reminder, we're sending it to the agent. We're saying, agent, we send out these reminders. I think on the 3rd one, we're sending an internal notification out to the agent, and we're saying, hey, agent, we sent out these reminders. We haven't gotten anything. By the 3rd reminder, we're sending you another internal notification that says you may want to pick up the phone and go call your person because we haven't gotten that information yet. Go get it, right? And then there's another cycle. So that's stuff that you don't have to do because we're doing those sort of reminders for you on the back end. So these are, if you can think about these things up front, it becomes something that you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night, because I have woken up in the middle of the night in cold sweats thinking like, oh my God, did I do the thing? And I'm like, and so then I get up because I can't sleep once I remember that I didn't do the thing. So doing the email, doing the thing that I didn't remember that I should have done, that if I had put it in automation, it would have already been done. So like, don't be like Sundey. Just make sure, and things are so much better than they were when I first started. But this is the kind of stuff that I geek out over, is when you guys look at the process. Actually, when I was doing this documentation, I was like, there's really not a lot for you all to do, but it was a pain in the ass for me to develop, because we tried to make this easier for you in terms of these reminders, checking to make sure that passport information is there, checking to make sure that if they book their own flight, that you've got the information and that the reminders are going out, checking to make sure that, you know, you've got all of these little I's that you've got to dot and these T's crossed. Now, again, we can't do it all for you, but what we can do is make sure that the reminders are going out. Like if it doesn't happen when it's supposed to, that they're going out, and that that's happening on autopilot without you having to think about it. So, you know, I am going to show you tomorrow what you have to set up in the system to make it happen. If you are already on the trial, the masterclass that I've released already has what you have to set up. And I'm going to go a little bit over it for our VIPers after this. And then I'm going to go over it tomorrow. But there's really minimal setup that you guys have to do. We've created sort of this booking forms location for you all so that you've got all your forms in one place. You can house it on your site. You can house it internal to the system. But really the idea is to make stage 1 through 4 as easy for you as possible so that you really can get more people into the cycle. You get more yeses so that you can just get people into the cycle. Right now, don't get me wrong. There are the pain in the clients who are like, I'm not going to send the passport information because I'm not gonna. And you're going to need to pick up the phone, or you're going to have to let it go and be like, okay, well, I don't have your passport. I hope to God you don't lose your passport and you get stuck out there, right? So like you're going to get exceptions to the rule, but as a general rule, we want to make the booking process standard as possible so that you can get it set up and people come into it and it's happening and you're getting the reminders internally when things aren't. You're really managing by exception instead of managing by rule. Does that make sense? So somebody asked, is stages 1 through 4 in the master class? So Christine, I think you just signed up in the trial. And so if you stay on in the VIP session, I'm going to be working with the trialers and the people who are using the system, and I'm going to walk through that for you guys. Awesome. All right, so this is really, and then really task management is stage 5, which is how much of this stuff can we automate and how much does it need to be manual, right? So depending on what your business is, like for example, our solution is really focused on those who are doing direct payments, right? You're processing payments, you're collecting funds. We do have a process to handle supplier payments, but all of it can't be automated because it's not handled in the system, right? So there are some manuals. So there's some manual things that you have to do to move things from stage to 1, because I don't want to automate that on your behalf. And like, I don't want to automate invoice creation, right? Like you guys need to be involved in that. So there's some things in the system that the system can do for you, has the ability to do for you, but as a process, we're not going to design that for you. There's some things that you're going to actually need to do. Like I can't define your product breakout for you, right? Like I don't know that you're going to charge a monthly payment of $555 versus $755, right? Like, so you got to define your products, how much your payments are going to be, your invoicing. So because we don't handle your money. We're not dealing with your money. So you've got to define what the money looks like, how it's broken out, how you want to collect the money. That's going to be with you. But like things that we can automate, we're absolutely going to try. Like we can absolutely automate email communication and SMS communication. We can automate and like in a travel request process, we automated, if you are doing a design fee, we automated the creation of that invoice because that should be pretty standard for you, right? So what we want to do is automate where we can, where it makes sense, and then make sure that, again, you're managing by exception instead of having to manage an entire process. So when it comes to task management, I'm going to give you this as an example. When I did the Travel Joy training a couple of years ago, I created a list of tasks for you guys, right? And I was like, okay, here's the client booking task list, and here's the travel request task list. So it's a very similar task list. But when I was actually training that task list, I was like, but you can't automate that. I can't automate this. And so like, I remember looking at my spreadsheet and just like frustrated. I was like pulling my hair out. I was like, well, that sucks. You can't automate that because I can't get access to that field. I can't do that. Right. So that's really kind of where we've sort of taken that that frustration out. Like, why can't an email go out based on a field? You guys need to geek out over that stuff because I've already done that geek out for you. But this is really what we're focused on, is really getting you. I can't make things faster unless I eliminate tasks for you, right? If anybody says, oh, well, here's a list of tasks and it's going to make your life easier. If it's a list of 100 tasks that you have to do, it's not going to make your life easier. You now have 100 tasks that you need to do. So the only way that I can help make this faster for you all is to eliminate tasks that you have to do. And so that is what we've attempted to do inside of the workflows that we are going to be talking about tomorrow. So the task management side, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that this week because I really have to get you now a smaller list of tasks. We have the big broad list that's in Travel Joy, but if you're going to be using Travel Pro Suite, there's a list of smaller set of tasks that really then represent the work that you have to do, because we have tried to automate, particularly in the client booking phase, we've tried to automate as much of it as we can. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions, see if you guys have any questions, but really these are the stages that we're talking within the client booking. Is what do we need to communicate to our clients after approval? How do we move them all the way till they get out of town? How do we get them back into town? And all the information we need to be collecting and sending to them throughout the process. That's really what client booking is all about in this workflow. All right, I'm going to open it up. Feel free to post in the chat or come off of mute and shoot your shot. Any questions, comments? But that's what we're going to go over for the next couple of days, is we're going to go over how do you get all that done, and like what's the best way to handle all of these different use cases and all of that. No questions? Because if not, then I'll let you go and I'll see you tomorrow. No? Does Travel Pro software replace Travel Joy? Yes and no. So it ideally can replace Travel Joy for you. We do 95% of the functionality that Travel Joy does. I would dare say a little bit better. But there are some situations that travel advisors are wanting to still keep Travel Joy. What my focus is trying to provide you a solution that does the majority of the functions that you need in your travel business. So it really is going to be a decision up to you if that's what you want to do, but it can do 95% of the functionality.
So Sundey, I have a question based off of that. So this Pam, hi. So I know hi. So because you have everything set up. So does Travel Joy pick up when after you do your landing page, and then it's like you put your trip in and then for your room for people to sign up? Because like I'm doing a landing page and I'm doing it in Google Docs.
Yeah, you don't need to do it in Travel Joy, Pam. You're doing it in Travel Joy. I'm not sure, but you don't need to. You can do it in Travel Pro.
Okay, because I haven't started. I'm working on the Google Docs outside. So then I was like, "Ooh, okay." But then I when I looked at the train, I said, "Oh, but I didn't see where they added the room and like with the pricing and stuff." So I didn't know if you could do it within the suite or if you have to take your Google Doc and put it in Travel Joy, then take it from there to finish.
Yeah, so let me, why don't you stay on after this and we can talk about like how you would actually realize that. So there's the product payment part that you need to set up inside of Travel Pro to be able to do that. And then you've got your landing page. So similarly, like you did your travel request page, we do have a destination page that you can set up, which is effectively your, I want you to think of the Google Doc as your destination requirements, right? What your itinerary is going to be. And so it doesn't matter what system, I do a Google Doc for every trip that I need to do a presentation for. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I just was like, I'm like, what happens after you do this? So because I didn't see from the training that it said, oh, you could put it into the suite. So okay, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. The suite is definitely Travel Joy's presentation. definitely is different in than what you've got. You've got definitely a better graphical representation of your trips in Travel Pro than you do in Travel Joy. And so that actually is a training I'm going to be doing at the end of the month, which is how do you actually create beautiful landing pages inside of the suite.
Yay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Does Travel Pro work the same with Travelify? So Travelify is an itinerary builder. It's a graphical itinerary builder, and it's got some CRM functionality in it that they are also trying to build out. And so they're adding some different functions. We are not an itinerary builder. We are a operational system and marketing suite. So Travel Pro, and so this is Travelify is is a sliver of the features that you as a travel advisor need to be doing in your business. So my focus isn't on the graphical representation of the itinerary. My focus is on from the time that somebody says, I want to go out of town until you get them back in town, all of the steps in between that you need to do to make that happen. Does that make sense? Do you need travel joy? um, I'm going to say no, but I'm not going to say no in a vacuum because I don't know what you're all that you're doing, Cheryl. And I know that you're in trial right now. So you may want to stay on after I let everyone go and we can talk about what you're using Travel Joy for. Are you hosted or not? Because what I'm finding is and we've created a solution for the supplier invoice part, a partial solution, but I need to know what you're doing. Group travel capabilities. Yes. Yes. Okay. So then the other question is operational system marketing suite in one. Love it. Still. Yep. Eveline, that would be exactly what we're doing all in one. So for those of you who are familiar with Active Campaign, Keep, sort of these all-in-one solutions, we're comparable to that. The difference between us and those solutions is when you implement those solutions, it's a blank slate. They may have some travel workflows. What you get with Travel Pro Suite is those workflows already thought through and built out, and then you can customize them from there. So you're not starting with a blank suite. Now, many of you all are in this training and you're like, well, I just use Travel Joy, and that's great. And you may still want to continue to use Travel Joy, but there, it is my hope at some point that you go beyond just managing the travel and that you're also looking to manage how you get clients, how you market to clients, how you communicate and stay engaged with clients, which is the marketing part. So many advisors early in their business, they're focused on the operations, like the booking management, which Travel Joy is a booking manager. Travelify is an itinerary builder with the booking manager, but the entire process of managing a client record is what Travel Joy doesn't do. It only does just a sliver of what you need to do. So again, I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other that you need to like kick any application to the curb. What I'm trying to say is you've got a business to run and you need tools to run it. And so what I want to do is minimize the different tools that you need to run your business. And so Travel Pro Suite provides you the opportunity to consolidate many of your tools. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then I will let you guys go. So some of the tools that we can, so leaving Travel Joy aside just for a second, if you're using any email marketing tool like Constant Contact, MailChimp, Zoho Mail, you're using your phone for messaging, you're texting on your phone, you're using Facebook for messaging, and you've got conversations all over the place. You want to consolidate that message into one place to be able to see where and what you've talked about with your client. If you're doing electronic signature with DocuSign or Adobe Sign or Zoho Sign or something like that, we can handle all of your electronic signature for your forms. If you're using Google Forms, if you're using Jot forms, Cognito forms, you're using all of that. If you're using a website builder to house your pages, that's another thing that we can eliminate. If you are, what else do we do? If you're using if you're using a payment processor to do your invoicing and you're going into PayPal to cut an invoice, and now you got an invoice here, you got your stuff in TravelJoy, we can consolidate all of that into one platform. Again, what we're looking for is one place that you can manage your client and you can see the journey from the time that they submit a request until you get them back at it in town. How about Vacation CRM? So Vacation CRM is just like a TravelJoy solution. So it manages the booking. It manages the booking. It does email. It's just another CRM. So there's three major players. That space is growing. You've got Turn now. You've got some other applications that are in the space. But again, their focus is just on the booking management part. They're not really managing any other part of your business. All right. Any other questions? Yep, we do. So, Pam, I'm so excited that you continue to be excited. So we're sort of taking this, like our business is not a small business, right? People jump in and they dive into the travel business and they're like, yeah, I'm going to book some travel and I'm going to be good. And there's a lot of moving parts to the travel business, like the business of our business. And we use a lot of different systems. And, up until recently, I myself had 10 different systems trying to keep my system afloat in terms of trying to get everything that I needed, right? And what I want to do is provide you guys, again, a central way to do the running of your business so that, again, you can focus on what is it that you love, which is getting more people out of town. And not the kitchen. That's right. So a lot of people in the business are focused on the aesthetics only, right? Okay, I've got this really sexy itinerary builder, and yes, it looks really great, right? But then you don't really have a really good way to capture signatures, and you don't really have a good way to manage your terms. You don't have a really good way to send out email communication that's central and deliverable, right? You don't have a good way to deliver or capture all of the information that you need about your client. You don't have a way to do remote, like there's all these missing pieces that you've got to sort of piece together. That is the reason why you guys have so many applications, is because you don't have one central place to do it. So this is what we're doing. So we're methodically going over all these major operational processes to sort of make sure you've thought through them, you've made some decisions about them in your business, and then I'm going to show you how we can help you get that done inside of our tool, or if you want to take those best practices and apply them to the tools that you have. Now, we still have TravelJoy training, so if you are still a TravelJoy user, you can go out there and get my TravelJoy training, which I go through how to set up the travel request process and the client booking management process using TravelJoy. With the features that they provide you. That's available to you if you're interested in that. What we're going to be talking about the rest of the week is really how to use Travel Pro Suite, test it out to actually help facilitate managing the booking inside of Travel Pro. This is right, Ganesha. That's why a lot of advisors don't understand, is because everything is so disconnected. You've got a system doing something over here, another system doing something over here. So being able to just see the health of your business is oftentimes very difficult to do. I am no longer affiliated with Compass Travel Tech. So that partnership no longer exists. So it's different workflows. So the workflows that are in Travel Pro Suite are workflows that are designed by me. They align to my framework. They align to the way that I teach how to operate your travel business. That would be one of the major differences. From a base feature functionality, probably very similar, but from a workflow and an implementation, you're going to see different business processes and implementation. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. If you are a trialer, You can join us, sign up for the trial, stay on, and we're going to be answering questions for people who are trying the application out and for the users of the application, because this is, I haven't even actually officially, because we ran out of time before this class, I haven't even officially released the functionality to everyone yet. So I want to actually step you guys through that tonight so you guys can see it in action, and then I'll be demoing it tomorrow. All right, so let me just paste the URL if you'd like to join us inside of trial. It is a 14. I'm going to paste it right here again. There you go. So you'll sign up, and what you're going to get access to and what all the emails is really going to be, if you are just signing up, you're going to get access to the travel request blueprint workflow that we went through. There's a masterclass on that. You'll get access to that masterclass. But this week, we're focused on the client booking, which is pillar 4 inside of the Opus framework. It's really going to be focused on client booking, how we set up the automations and the workflows for client booking. All right. If you are not, I will see you tomorrow. We'll demo that functionality tomorrow. And if you are a trialer and like to stay on with me. I'm going to be working with you all for another hour to demo and answer any questions and make sure that everyone is okay. It was great talking